I love being in Barcelona. I love being here. I love being with Coanne. I love being with everyone here. So I'm in heaven. Today I'm going to talk twice, once before and once after. So for before, I'm going to speak quickly. I'm going to show you way too many pictures because I'm an architect and designer and I render things visible. And one of the things I like to tell people is, as an architect, the first job is to change the way you see. When someone says their garden looks terrible, I'll say to them, perhaps, to you it looks terrible, to a butterfly it's getting better every day. So, what is beautiful? And the second is rearrange the furniture before we start to build, and this has got re in it. And I think the idea of simply talking about decoupling resources from growth is rather silly. It's really an and, as we heard. It's really recoupling materials and growth, because this re is really important, and we need to put the re back into resources. So every time we say de, or un, or minimize, avoid, reduce, we're talking about what we don't want and what we don't want to do. And if all we tell the world is what we don't want, I'm going to reduce my carbon emissions in the atmosphere by 20% by 2020. You've just told somebody what you're not going to do, which is not that helpful when I leave here and tell the taxi driver, quick, I'm not going to the airport. So, at the end of this conference, I think perhaps it'd be nice if we could talk about what we are going to do. And since design is the first signal of human intention, the question becomes, what are your intentions? What are you intending for us? Just to be less bad? Or to circulate the wrong things over and over? So I think we ought to hit a reboot and look at a poem from 1124 by Hildegard von Bingen, German poet, mystic, nun, doctor. Glance at the sun, see the moon and the stars. Gaze at the beauty of Earth's greenings. Now, think. Glance, see, gaze, think. What a delight God gives to humankind. Delight, joy, beauty, wonder. And then, all nature is at the disposal of humankind. We are to work with it, without it we cannot survive. This is sustainability, but this is also dominion. And if we're given dominion over the planet and it's there for our use, then we have certain responsibilities because we are the dominant species. And this is the era known as Anthropocene. So how does one behave in an era known as Anthropocene? Well, the first thing we might do is try and understand what it is we're dominating. And it might be interesting to note that there are certain basics out there. One is, certainly if you're going to talk about the economy, you have to look for your income. Where's the income come from? Oh, solar energy, photons, that's a form of income. But on the material front, what we have is the occasional meteorite and some cosmic dust. So the materials that are here are what we have here to work with. And so it's not income, it's capital reserves being put to utility. And if we dig up a lot of toxic metals and circulate it, we toxify. And then thirdly, we realize that life itself comes from the carbon from the atmosphere with the nitrogen from the atmosphere. These are the other two forms of income, and they create biology. And isn't that amazing? And that is us. We are from the soil. Just so you know, the word human has the same root as humus. Soil and human are one thing. So we are that living skin. And if we look at that, we realize there are two fundamental metabolisms that have occurred on the surface of the Earth. The one natural biological metabolism that causes us to be alive at all, the magic of life and the joy of it, and the complexity of really a waste equals food, as we call it, system. Now we say everything is food. But in the last 5,000 years, as Michael Braungart and I have pointed out, there's another metabolism we call the technical one. And humans are designing things into the technical system. And we have a strange habit of looking at these things and talking about life cycle. People pick up the phone and go, like, I want to talk about the life cycle of my telephone. Well, you can talk to your phone, hello, hello, but it's not a living thing. And so we talk about life cycle assessment, and we say design for end of life. if design is the first signal of intention and you're designing for end of life, you might get what you're designing for, the end of life, because you're designing all these inanimate objects to go destroy biology. Whoops. So if we think about it, just circulating the wrong things is not a good. Is transparency good? Transparency is a tool. If you're transparently a criminal, the transparency doesn't make you not a criminal. It just makes you clearly a criminal. So if I circulate toxic materials and I say, I'm a circular company, I'm circulating, and you're circulating poisons over and over again, adding more poisons. Does circular make you good? No, it makes you bad again and again and again. See? So let's get a distinction between our tools and our principles. So we see design going into biological systems, technical systems. Now, if we look at the history of the making of things with humans, let's call that facturing, and that is making. So we can see that we've had biofacturing by taking bits of the earth after being hunter-gatherers. We take clay and make bricks. We take wool and cotton and make clothing. These are the facturing of biological materials. We've also had technical facturing in the last 5,000 years, swords into plowshares. We take metals from the ground, hammer it, make something scary, make something helpful. But the tools themselves are innocent. The value of a tool is put there by the person using the tool. So if you take a hammer, is it a good or a bad? Right? You give it to a child, it's a toy. You give it to a carpenter, it's a chicken coop. You give it to a maniac, it's a weapon. Right? The hammer doesn't know. The hammer is innocent. The value of the tool is put there by the intention of the user. So what happens when we get to artificial intelligence? What happens when we get to machine learning? What do the machines tell each other? How do they instruct? What do they intend? So, when we started working on cradle-to-cradle things, I wrote the Hanover Principles in 1992 for the Earth Summit. We looked at design for sustainability and developed waste equals food, eliminate the concept of waste, use current solar income, and celebrate diversity. And this is a very rich set of principles for circular economy and for cradle-to-cradle. But I want to talk about the circular economy in the context of cradle-to-cradle. So cradle-to-cradle has 5 frame conditions. The first is design into biological technical cycles, materials that are safe and healthy, regenerative, restorative. That's the first job. Then the second is circular economy. Because if you only do circular economy, you could be circulating the stuff we do today, and all you're doing is like eco-efficiency, just reducing the damage of what we're doing today, but still doing it, and doing more of it because we're expanding on other dimensions. Or you are designing things that are contaminating systems continuously, albeit less so. So the first question is, let's do the right thing, then let's do it the right way, because circular economy is the right way. And fortunately, groups like Ellen MacArthur have adopted our cradle-to-cradle protocol of biological and technical nutrients, and so there are people all over the world using our charts. Here's an example of the separation of biological, technical. Very important, and it's great to see that it's getting brought into the descriptions of circular economy, and it's really important there that they're honored as the qualification of the circular economy, not just the quantification. So this is the order. Material health first, circular economy second, 3, clean energy, clean water, and social fairness. These are other dimensions that are not just the economy. It's a richer mix, all 5. So these are the 5 conditions of a cradle-to-cradle certified product. First, are you safe? Are you healthy? Second, have you created your circular economy? New business models, leasing concepts, we call it products as services. We talked about washing machines that we leased. We were called communists because they said, you don't believe in ownership. It was like, get over it. You know, people understand this. It'll come. And then plus it allows for much higher quality of products. And they end up with durability, so you're literally consuming less if you thought you could consume a washing machine. I don't know how many people think they can consume a car. I don't know how you can call anybody buying a camera a consumer. Anybody tried to eat a camera lately? It does, silly. So these are objects of service. They provide use periods. And we design for use periods, not end of life. We say design for next use. And as soon as you tell the designer you're designing for next use, it's a different assignment than designing for end of life. Because they're not designing it to go to the landfill or incinerator or be wasted. And then we have new clean energy systems coming that'll be surprising and delightful, not just renewables, water, and fairness. And I think we've found, given sustainability thinking, that the Sustainable Development Goals promulgated by the United Nations are perfectly good. I would use them, and I would use them with vigor. And let us honor all the countries that have come together to put these goals together and design into them. And I'm working on a product right now that nails every single one of those all at once. See, that's a real fun design assignment. It's like saying to the butterflies, look, I have 17 flowers for you here, right? How's that? Go for it. You know? No reason to go extinct. Lots of nectar, lots of pollinating moments here. Go for it. So when we look at cradle-to-cradle thinking, we take the circular economy, fine, let's talk about that. In sustainability, we merge, obviously, environment, equity, and economy, but when we start by thinking about the goals of equity, economy, and environment, we see that we used to have social goals here. And this was socialism, and then this would be capital goals. These would be capitalism, and you ended up with social market economy, 1700s equity, the destruction of feudalism, primogeniture, divine right, with the Declaration of Independence, French Revolution, so on, in the Western tradition. And then we end up with Adam Smith and wealth of nations, and then we have an economic world, a world of markets. So we end up with a social market economy, and everybody forgets the environment. And so the 1700s, we got equity. The 1800s, we got economy. And what do we get in the 2000s? We got, or the 1900s, excuse me. We got pollution. That's all I can think of, the pollution century. And I don't know, what were we thinking, or what were we not thinking? I don't know. We just started to party it up. And I think from the US side, I was born in Tokyo. I saw Hiroshima when I was 5 years old. And I think the fact that at the middle of the century, people started to live as if there's no tomorrow was because we created a condition where it is possible there is no tomorrow. So people just said, party up. This could be over in a moment. Let's go for it. And I think if we're going to have a system that's going to allow us to think long term, let's get into it. Let's enjoy it. And let's stop talking about consumers and throwing things away. Away has gone away. And it's not all about to go poof. And if it does, well, we had a good time trying to avoid it. Fine. So that's how I look at it. So when we bring in the environment now, it really becomes a richer mix. And what we're looking for by design is 100% fabulous here that meets all these conditions. So for sustainable brands that are focused on business, you start in this corner. You see the economy corner of the economy corner right here. And what is the question in the economy corner? Can I make a profit? If you can't, don't do it. Over and out. Okay, that's easy. Because you don't, you're not a business. If you're not a business, you're not here. If you're not here, you can't help us. Moving on. So by definition, you must make profit. What is this? Well, this is fair. Can you make profit fairly? So what is that? Well, that's living wage. It's also corporate social responsibility. See? Business, social responsibility. This is fairness first, money second. This is, am I paying men and women the same for the same work? Fairness, money. This is just fairness. This is equity. This is dignity. This is respect. This is racism. This is sexism. Nothing to do with the environment or money. This is it fair to pollute people in the workplace and make polluted products? Is it fair to pollute the environment for all generations and destroy the atmosphere or a river? Is that fair? And then for other generations especially. And then this is, am I following the laws of nature? Now, I'm an architect. I have to follow the law of gravity. It's not just a good idea. It's the law. Right? So what other laws does nature tell us it would like to follow? And then this is what we call eco-effectiveness. Am I following the laws of nature while doing business? And so this is what I work on most of the time, is right in here in terms of that context. And then this is eco-efficiency, and let me do most with less. And if I reduce my water and energy consumption by 10%, that's nice. But wait a minute, let's think about this for a minute. This happens to be the circular economy, right? It's the economy corner. But what does it mean? It means I make a profit, of course, and it means I have corporate social responsibility, and I like to publicize charts of my performance and behaviors. And then I report on the environment about how much I've reduced my waste. Is that it? All we show is what we're not doing? Now, if a company says they saved $10 million in energy and water, isn't that great? Then the question is, if that's 10% of what you're doing, now you're only 90% destructive of energy and water? That's it? That's all you got for us? It seems to me you've had bad managers, because last year you used $10 million worth of energy and water you didn't need. And now you're celebrating that when you should be asking the managers, what were we doing spending $10 million on energy and water we didn't need? Whoa, this is a slippery area. And I think it's really important we do it. Absolutely, of course we should do this. But when you hear the word minimize, avoid, reduce, think optimize, engage, think top line, your executives, right? Peter Drucker said, it's a manager's job to do something the right way, but it's the executive's job to do the right thing. Right? Because what happens if you're doing the wrong thing perfectly? You're perfectly wrong. Oops. Okay? So this is really about triple top line, not triple bottom line. Create revenue. Let's get some social revenue going. Let's get some ecological revenue going. Not just tell me how you've damaged the environment less. Talk about an environment you've enhanced more. Right? We're designing a building in Barcelona. The decoration for the lobby is 2 sheets of glass that'll have butterflies hatching in the walls. The butterflies of Barcelona are going extinct. So the walls will be full of butterflies hatching. And then when the kids come on the weekends, they can release the ancient butterflies back into Barcelona. Buildings can restore biodiversity, and why not? Okay. So being less bad is not being good. So instead of simply having charts that say, here's my reduction in carbon, by 20% by 2020, or my goal is 0. You can imagine going home and telling your children, my goal is nothing, and you're making it difficult for me because I have to feed and clothe you. It's miserable. And if I tell you I'm not doing something, well, what good is that to you, really? So we've decided, take the stuff we don't want, put it below the line, and then 0 is a noble goal. We get rid of all the things we don't want, because we're putting human values onto the data. We're saying, what is good, what is bad? Because the confusion is people think less bad is being good because they're confusing Plato with Aristotle, his student, and they're combining value with values, and that doesn't work, because the value statement is good and bad. The value statement is less and more. And if you say less bad, you're confusing numbers with human values. So less bad is not being good. It's by definition bad, just less so. So how many people go home and say to the kids, I'm going out to work today. Today I'm going to be less bad. Isn't that great? Yeah. Okay. So what about a positive goal instead of a less bad goal? So we've gone ahead and articulated one we think is pretty straightforward. Delightfully verse, safe, healthy, and just world, clean air, soil, water, and power, economically, equitably, ecologically, and elegantly enjoyed. Period. Okay, you could say, less unjust, less unsafe, less unclean if you want to, but just get rid of all the lesses and it sounds better. So then your goal becomes 100% fabulous. And so we start with an inventory, we put it through human values, we start to articulate our progress, and you end up with a tool we call the upcycle chart for constant improvement. Now, what happens when you think like this? A chemist who read Cradle and was inspired decided to disassemble the telephone and found a way to take circuit boards, and if you mine gold right now, you get $210 a ton if you do it this way, which is kind of old-fashioned relatively. That is a very big vehicle, by the way. Human being is... So what happened is he found a way to clean water in, clean water out, and take out over $27,000 worth of rare earths and metals, if you can imagine, with a clean system. Pretty astonishing. And this is all based on the fact that we put Cradle to Cradle into the public domain. A few years ago with support from the Dutch. Yes. Go Netherlands. And support from the Schmidt family. So we spent a lot of time and money with scientists getting it peer-reviewed, and it's now a public good in public domain, third-party, independent, peer-reviewed organization. So that's just starting to build an incredible head of steam because it's a gold standard for qualification. And as we look at it, here's how it works. And you see it has the circular economy in it as number 2. But basically, we have the chemists and scientists review all the materials down to the parts per million, parts per billion, and do constant improvement. You come back every 2 years to show your improvements. And it starts in the biological sectors by defining the product first as either part of the biosphere or the technosphere. And then here's a case where we did textile in 1994. We do this every day now in textiles where we actually study it so that water coming in is as clean as water going out, and everything is a nutrient for the biological systems, including you. Saves the companies lots of money, no regulations, because it's safe, and it's good business. The same thing in the carpet industry, in this case, technical nutrients. We see carpets, we put it forward in the 90s as the idea that what you want from the carpet is appearance, comfort, acoustics, and whatever. And sometimes what you get is hazardous waste or dangerous plasticizers or carcinogens, face fibers. And so we redesigned the carpets to be safe, healthy assets. But one of the things that's important for circular economy is that this is not only a product as a service, it's also something, you're storing your products, you're storing your raw materials on your customers' floors. Think about that. You're warehousing your materials with your customers. That's really interesting because you're in relationship. And so we remove the word resources from all your language, really. Whenever you hear human resources, say human relations, HR. If you hear natural resources or natural capital or something like nature's there for our use, right? Capital, it's all there. You just take it. Say natural relations, like native peoples do. If you find yourself having money, instead of saying economic resources, say economic relationships. Because what's happened with this is you're in an economic relationship with your customer, and you're in a business. What's the most important relationship you have? The one with your customer, right? They're not a resource. The money's not a resource. The money is a relationship. It's really quite astonishing when you think about it. And the materials get better. So with Herman Miller, this is the first cradle-to-cradle chair, but the chair is designed to come apart with simple tools, and the materials back to international pools of materials for reuse. This one I put up because a lot of people are talking today, and it's fun to see. They brought our example of, well, you could buy a washing machine, you could just really, what you want is washing, and what we get is a bunch of equipment. And so what if we could actually lease the machine in effect and get washes instead of equipment? What happens, and the thing that happens is the company ends up owning the machine and selling you the washing. That's all very nice. And it can be very economic. But the thing that's great, the machine gets better because you gold plate the anodes because you'd rather not send service people as it dies its normal, death if you do planned obsolescence. And so you're not having to maintain the machine because it's high quality and you know where your materials are, steel, gold, so rubber. But here's the other thing that really is the important one in the economics. You maintain the asset on your books. You see, right now, companies make a product, and then it disappears from their books. Well, who's depreciating? It's gone. It's gone. Whoa, the economy just shrank. It had a transaction, poof, the steel's gone, the rubber's gone, it disappears. See, if you do it this way, this company says, oh, I still have this much steel, I still have this much rubber. And also we're designing for next use. And all of a sudden, these things become part of a circular economy, not just disappear from some economy that doesn't make any sense. See what's happening? That's a really important idea. And the reason I put it here with this building, this is a building I designed for Bosch Siemens. This is their showroom for appliances. We designed, it's in Amsterdam. And people come here to try out kitchens and things. But what's fun, when people said you're communists and people aren't going to buy lease machines, well, listen, this building is a washing machine. Take a look at it, right? It's a big thing with a big hole in the middle of it. It's a toaster. It's an oven. It's just a big appliance. The building is a big appliance, and it has a 15-year lease. And nobody walks in there going, I have a lease on this building. Oh, I have to own the building. How many people want to own the building? Anybody? No, you go to a meeting in the building. You live in the building. You talk to other people in the building. You work in the building. The CEO, when he gave me the performance reports, which are pretty astonishing, we're tracking it quite closely, he said his favorite one isn't the energy, the water, all the cool stuff, air quality and everything else. His favorite one is that internal email is down 28%. People talk to each other. Oh, goody. Because the building's a big mixing valve. Here's one. This I find very exciting. This is a new battery that is the first battery that's cradle-to-cradle certified, a battery safe enough that your children could chew on it and you'd be fine. Can you imagine that? They went out and said, let's make a battery out of stuff we'd find walking around. And they ended up making it out of salt water and paper, a polypropylene case. Isn't that astonishing? So there it is, the first cradle-to-cradle certified battery. No more toxics. Why not? We can do this. So I wanted to finish up with a short history of making things and then show you some pictures. So if we, think this way and then put it into circular economy, we start to realize over the history of time, human time, we've been making things, factoring, and we could design them into biological and technical cycles. And so really what we've called it was manufacturing. So what does mean? It means hand, and facture means execute. So to make things by hand, that's what it meant. And so manufacturing comes from manufacturing, working with our hands. And so we worked at home or close by. We farmed, we made bricks out of mud. We did weaving, we did knotting. People worked in silence. They could weave, knot, make things that other people need. That's where this starts, the making by the hand. And then, as we see this evolve, we end up with machine factoring. We called it manufacturing. Oops, big mistake, because it's not manufacturing, it's machine factoring. And it allows us to have incredible scale and scope. All of a sudden, everybody can have cotton. Boom, here we go, the whole world. We got a manufacturing world. And we probably should have called it machine factoring. Now, we've gone 3D. Now we've got three-dimensional spinning, we've got robots everywhere. I was just in a textile mill apparel company. Guess how many people work in this building? 60,000 square feet. 2. So if you look at this issue of what happens as the machines come and take the place of the hand, that's a dynamic situation we have, and that's something not to ignore. So while we're worrying about how these people who work in various sectors in the manufacturing are being exposed to things, just remember, we might find ourselves saying they're not exposed to them anymore because they don't have jobs, so now we don't worry about it because they're not working for us anymore. That could be pretty scary too. So we really have to think hard now, because now we're into AI, and we're moving to when the machines learn from the machines. So then the question is, what are they learning? Because what are the values that are being translated to the machines in terms of their instruction? Because these are just tools. And the tools are innocent until they have intentions. And who puts the intention in the tool? When does the toy become a weapon? So this is a very interesting thing for our culture right now. And I think the excitement for me is that the design work is really about this is what this is actually all about. And let's remember that when we start to instruct the machines. So, a quick look at some of the buildings just to see what I get to do in my day job. The River Rouge for Ford Motor, world's largest green roof. But it saved Ford $35 million in CapEx the first day by using natural systems instead of chemical plants and pipes. So talk to the business people. We saved you $35 million CapEx. It's the same as an order for $900 million worth of cars at a 4% margin. Approved. Next. Move. Go. Use the language. Get it done. Design cars that become cars again forever. Not hyper vehicles that last 25 years in toxic materials and perpetuate the wrong thing. Not recycling our internal combustion engines to get another 15 years of durability and call it circular economy and get all excited. You can call that interesting as long as the company is staying in business in order to transform into something else. But if that's what you're doing, just repeating yesterday's plan over and over again because you think it's good to be circular, but you're perpetuating carbon in the atmosphere, then say it out loud and put it on your goal statement. We are here to perpetuate the internal combustion engine. And then the question is, if you're going to do that, how long are you going to do it until you change something else? That is the only justification, is staying in business, doing it this way while you're transforming into something else. But all of these are implicitly turning into something else. And so if the circular economy has any benefit, and that's what's so exciting about what the Dutch are doing, they realize that the issues are concentration and flow. Bring the materials together, put them into flow. Don't have this kind of weird entropy that we have and call it any kind of circularity, because we can't recover it. It's biological systems that are negative entropy. Just remember that. So this is space station for NASA. NASA asked me to design their space station on Earth. Well, actually, they asked me to work on Mars. And I said, I can't go to the red planet until you come back to the blue one. So we came back to the blue one with the rocket scientists, and they designed a building with me that could make more energy. It needs to operate 20% from renewable sources and purify its own water. This is a factory in India, and we covered the roof with the structure and ended up using it for greenhouses and solar everywhere. So this building grows food for all the people who work there as well. That's our first tomato. And then looking at Dr. Venkataswamy in India giving eyesight to 3 million people for free, I thought, let me work on designing housing, dignified housing and packaging for the future. So I'm working on packaging now, and I'm also designing building materials that can use these materials to clean them up. And we're looking at the circular economy, and I've had the privilege of being the chairman of the Meta Council for Circular Economy in Davos and the World Economic Forum with Ellen MacArthur as vice chair here. And so we put together, I put this fun thing on the roof just to show the idea that we can make buildings, and this is in 2 days. We built this, evidencing the idea of translucency and just light. I was born in Japan, or one of the reporters noticed this. And these walls of nanotechnology that are clean and healthy and quite astonishingly beautiful. And then the whole building is made of 2 pieces. And it's actually parts that are going to be designed for housing for the poor and the needy around the world who can use these parts to make things. And so we discussed the circular economy at Davos. And here's Eunice, Mohammed Yunus, who inspired me to work on the housing for the needy. And there's the little evocation. But here in Amsterdam, buildings that are designed as material banks, they're designed as disassembly. It's the largest collection of cradle-to-cradle materials in the world. The buildings have their signatures and passports on all the materials. We lease lighting, we lease elevators, we lease everything that we can lease. We don't need to own them. We've designed places where people can experience what this is really about. The buildings are all designed to be convertible to housing in the future, or reused or taken apart with dignity. And then now we grow food there for the restaurant. And now we're looking at another project next door that has just been declared the national hub for the circular economy for the Netherlands by the government. And it's 3.5 square kilometers. And so we're looking at all the companies that could have a potential interest in engaging. It's a very large project because you can see Park 2020, I just showed you, is right here. So it's this big. Yeah. Logistics. And we're trying to look at how to make our carbon an asset instead of a liability. We're looking at how cities are going to do this in the future. And so we're designing it as it fits into the ancient Dutch polders as buildings that are photosynthetic. They make energy or they grow food on their surfaces. And we're looking at biological and technical materials where people come together and have fun. We're even designing cities for China that can feed themselves, and in Denmark, new research for Denmark. So I'll finish with this. I think starting with Aristotle and your values, you can go down to your value if you go that direction. If you start with just number, you can get to goals, but you benchmark. So the real question is, how do we love all the children of all species for all time? I think our goal should be a positive one so our kids have some hope. And then we move the question of capitalism from meanness and greed, how much can I get for how little I give, to one of abundance and sharing. How much can we give for all that we get? So the question becomes, how does the world get better because we're here, not how do we recirculate yesterday. It's how did the world get better? How did we grow? So let's back our way out of Hildegard. All nature is the disposal of humankind. We are to work with it, for without it we cannot survive. But if I asked you what your relationship is to your children and you said sustainable, I'd say, I'm sorry. It sounds like maintenance. Because they're a delight. And we should celebrate this, and we should glance at the sun, see the moon and the stars, gaze at the beauty of Earth's greenings, gaze at the beauty of our children, and think. Thank you.